Hello everybody. So I'm going to start on the Merchant of Venice here, and I'm going to set my stopwatch or my clock alarm, and I'm going to make sure that I don't exceed 15 minutes in this video. I hope it's not too long. Merchant of Venice is a play that many of you are studying for your junior cycle preparation, and I'm going to try and make your study of a little bit easier through these videos. Hopefully you'll find them in some way useful. Let me know if you do actually. So look, here we go. It is a play that is often quite boring. There are lots of scenes in it, which I hope your teacher's not gonna slog all the way through. Which are of no real huge importance to you as students of the play or people even interested in the play. Scenes that work well on stage, but not so much when you're studying it. And what I'm going to do is drill down into the key moments, because that's what you want me to do. Let's start off with just mentioning the kind of main characters and the plot line. So we have Portia, this very important heiress from a place called Belmont. And she, of course, is the daughter of a very controlling father. So there are loads of kind of themes about power and attitudes to women and prejudice and marriage and love relate around Portia. And Portia has been, there's a presumption that in order for her to live a fulfilled life that she's going to be married, but she doesn't have the power or the capacity to choose her husband herself. So there's this plot line about these suitors coming to kind of solve this puzzle that has been created by her father to find someone who he thinks will be worthy of his daughter. The father has died. We have Portia's gentlewoman or her servant, Nerissa, and she plays a very minor role in the play. But Portia, very, very, very important character in the play. Okay? She's one of your options for the central character that you're going to prepare. Then we have Antonio. Now, he is the guy who we hear of as the Merchant of Venice. So he's a much loved and well respected businessman. Merchant is somebody who buys and sells goods. He's really rich, but he has the drama of the play is set up around the fact that he's invested his money in a number of business deals that depend on ships making it back, and the idea that international trade, which is reliant on shipping, can be impacted by storms or piracy or whatever. So he is your the eponymous means. The play is named after him. So he's the eponymous Merchant of Venice. And he's a really unpleasant man, even though Shakespeare sets him up as the hero. He's an anti-Semite. He's in many ways a racist. He's a bigot. And I'm going to show you nice things you can say about Antonio, but I don't like him. And I don't see him as the hero of the play, even though that might be slightly controversial. His best mate is Bassanio, and Bassanio wants to marry Portia. The problem is that in order to marry her, she being an heiress, a suitor is somebody who wants to marry, in this case, a woman, is like applying for the job, needs to have money in order to show that he can support her. Certainly money that in some way is equal to the amount of wealth that her family has. And Bassanio is broke and he needs money in order to pursue this love affair. So in the story of the play, Bassanio goes to his mate Antonio, who has bags of cash, and says, "Gives a lend. Any chance? I need this money in order to, pursue this suit." And Antonio says, "Yeah, no problem, mate. I'll sort you out." Yeah, and he lends him money. The problem is that the money that Antonio lends, Antonio has to himself borrow, because his money is all invested in these ships. And he goes to the third really important character. So we have Portia, we have Antonio. He goes to the third really important character in the play, and that is Shylock, a character who I absolutely love, and I hope you're going to find him really interesting. Now, Shylock is a Jewish moneylender, and it's interesting how the play does depict kind of contemporary attitudes to Jewish people. So contemporary means of the time when the play was written. So the play was written at the end of the 1500s, the end of the 16th century. And there's a lot of quite ugly prejudice in the play. But I think what's interesting is Shakespeare depicts the people who are prejudiced in a really negative way. These two characters are Salario, Gratiano in particular, who is just a horrible human being. And he's probably the worst of the anti-Semites. And when we, racists, and when we hear Antonio, and we're meant to like Antonio, but when we hear some of the things that he's done that cause resentment, maybe it's our modern attitudes looking back, but I don't think so. I think that Shakespeare's deliberately going out of his way to show that Antonio isn't as nice maybe as he likes to think he is, doesn't maybe live by the Christian values that he espouses. So it's really interesting dynamic in the play. But Shylock is certainly, if you like, the anti-hero of the play. So we're not supposed to like him. Okay? He is a mean human being. And I don't mean that in terms of money. I mean in terms of what he wants to do. He is, in very many ways, kind of a scary human being. But he's a deeply interesting and in many ways, largely very empathetic human being. See that word empathetic? Sorry, empathetic. He is deeply empathetic because, what that means is that even if you don't particularly like him, you can relate to him. And the way he's portrayed in the play is really fascinating. I think this is, as I said, I started off by saying there's loads of boring bits in this play, but there's some fascinating bits in this play, and it's built around Shylock. So what Antonio does is, Antonio, who has treated Shylock really badly, who needs money to help his mate Bassanio, who wants to marry Portia, and he can't get in the door or even to take the tests without money. Antonio goes to Shylock and says, "Gives a lend." Now, Shylock is a moneylender, and the contemporary term, or the term that you might hear me using for a moneylender, is a usurer. There you go. If you're playing Scrabble, as I was earlier on, there's a great word, isn't it? Usury is is money lending for interest. What we today call banking. But in many places in the world, it was illegal, or certainly wasn't deemed to be respectable. And Jewish people who lived on the margins of society and were discriminated against greatly because of their faith and their religion, they were associated with this business. And Shylock he's a very successful businessman. If it's not for him, then business doesn't function. Like, imagine business trying to function without banks. But Shylock has this request from Antonio, lend me this money. And Shylock says, well, I don't want to lend you money. You're a horrible person. You've really treated me very badly. But when he realizes how Antonio is so desperate, Shylock spots an opportunity. So he sets up a contract, and that contract has a clause in it, a default clause. A default means if you can't pay your debt. And a clause is a part of a legal contract. And the default clause is that if Antonio can't pay the money back, the amount that he owes by a specific date, then he will have forfeited a pound of his own flesh. Okay? A pound of flesh. And that becomes a huge metaphor in the play. So Shylock sees the opportunity to inflict incredible pain onto Antonio. Because if you take a pound of flesh out of somebody, you're probably going to kill them. But certainly you're going to cause them a huge amount of pain. And the drama of the play builds up to this moment in Act 4, Scene 1. And by the way, before I even get started, if you know Act 4, Scene 1 of this play, you've got enough. No, I think you're losing out on loads, but Act 4, Scene 1 is the core scene. Okay? So there's this incredibly dramatic courtroom scene in Act 4, Scene 1 where Shylock demands his pound of flesh. And we find out what happens. And that's basically the story of the play. It's a love story. Do Portia and Bassanio get together? Does Portia manage to, find a way out of the trap that her father set her in terms of marrying someone she actually loves? Does Antonio You know, do his ships come in? Does he manage to, you know, pay back his debt to Shylock, or does Shylock get his revenge? And it is very much a revenge play for the terrible treatment that he has received at the hands of Antonio. And therefore, is Antonio then representative of the entire, you know, Christian state of Venice and the way it treats Jewish people? So it's a really, really fascinating play. And over the course of the next few weeks, I'm going to dig into key scenes. I'm going to break down the key quotes that I would recommend you learn. And hopefully you'll find it in some way useful. Let me know if you do. If you do ever watch these videos and you think that they're any use, just do us a favour and like them, because that will encourage me to do more of them. Okay? Cheers. Thank you.